Lady Louise Windsor had spent her whole life as a member of the royal family by being very quiet and staying out of trouble. She was the kind of person who never wanted to cause a scene or make anyone feel bad. Even when things at the palace felt very tense and people seemed angry with each other behind closed doors, Louise chose to keep her thoughts to herself. But that long time of staying quiet ended with just one very strong sentence that shocked everyone. She was standing right next to her mother in a big, beautiful room called a drawing room at their home, Bagshot Park. Louise looked straight at Queen Camilla with a very serious face. She did not look away. She said very clearly, "Camilla will never be welcome in our home." She did not yell, and she did not wait or act like she was unsure. It was a very firm rule that she had decided on. Right then, everyone in the room knew that the royal family would never be the same again. It was a moment that changed everything for them. Before we talk more about what this big change means for the royal family, please make sure to click the subscribe button. That way, you will not miss any new stories or updates about what happens next. It is very important to stay tuned because things are moving very fast in the palace right now. Edward and Sophie had asked King Charles, Queen Camilla, Princess Anne, Prince William, Princess Catherine, and Louise to come over to their house at Bagshot Park. They thought it would be a nice, quiet time to talk about what jobs the family would have to do for special ceremonies in the future. They wanted to have a calm meeting to plan things out. Bagshot Park is where Edward, Sophie, and their children live together as a family. Because it was their own private home, the meeting felt more like a family talk than a big, official government event. There were no news cameras there, and no reporters were watching through the windows. Because it was just family, everyone thought they could be completely honest about their feelings. Nobody expected that anyone would stand up and say no in such a bold way. It was supposed to be a normal day, but it turned into a day no one would ever forget. Camilla changed the mood of the meeting by asking questions about how Sophie was helping Louise. She was worried about Louise's future and the jobs she would do for the country. Camilla said that the young royal needed someone to give her much more strict rules and better direction. She suggested that these new instructions should come from the Queen's own team of workers. In the royal world, a household is a special group of advisors and staff who help a senior family member with their work and their life. If Louise and her parents said yes to this idea, it would mean that Camilla's office would get to decide Louise's schedule. They would choose where she went, what she said in public, and how she grew into her important role in the monarchy. It was a big move to take control of Louise's life. Louise stood up before her mother, Sophie, could even say a single word. She was very brave to stand up so quickly. She was holding onto the back of her wooden chair so hard that her hands were shaking and turning white. Even though she was clearly very nervous and her heart was probably beating very fast, her voice stayed very steady and calm. She did not let her fear stop her from speaking her mind. Then she said it very simply and plainly so that everyone could hear her perfectly. She said, "Camilla will never be welcome in our home." Her mother, Sophie, looked at her daughter and felt many things at once. She felt a little bit worried, but she also felt very proud. She could see that Louise was scared, but she was still refusing to back down or run away from the hard moment. At first, Camilla did not take Louise's words seriously. She thought the young woman was just having a moment where she was too emotional or upset. She spoke to Louise in a soft voice and asked her to think about what she had just said. Camilla told her that saying mean things when you are angry can hurt a family forever and make it impossible to fix things later. Louise did not blink. She kept looking right at Camilla. King Charles looked down at the floor, not wanting to meet anyone's eyes. Edward, Louise's father, walked over to stand closer to his daughter. He did not say anything or try to stop her. His silence showed that he was there to protect her, not to tell her she was wrong. He was standing by her side like a shield. One specific word in Louise's sentence was the most important part of all. Louise did not say "my home." Instead, she said "our home." By using that one little word, she showed that she wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for her mom and her dad, too. This meant that the line she was drawing was a boundary that the whole family agreed on. It wasn't just a girl being mad. It was a whole family saying they had had enough. Camilla turned to look at Sophie. She asked if Louise was really speaking for everyone. Sophie slowly put her teacup down on its saucer. She didn't rush. She looked at Camilla and said very quietly, "She has said what needed to be said." It was her way of saying she agreed with her daughter completely. Princess Anne was watching everything very closely. She could see that Louise was almost crying. She wasn't yelling because she was mean. She was speaking because she was hurt. Anne realized right away that this fight didn't actually start in this room today. Something had happened a while ago that broke the trust between these family members. As Camilla walked out of Bagshot Park, the silence in the house was very heavy. It felt worse than if people had been shouting at her. As she got into her waiting car, she must have been wondering what she did to make Louise, who is usually the quietest person in the family, finally decide to close the door on her forever. Louise was never taught to be the center of attention or to fight for people to look at her. Her parents raised her to be a good listener and to stay out of the way of drama. They taught her that the best way for a royal family to survive is by saying less than people expect them to say. That is exactly why everyone in the room was so shocked and a little bit scared when she spoke up. She wasn't a person who liked to be in the news or someone who liked to cause trouble. She was Edward and Sophie's daughter, a girl known for being very loyal and working hard. She loved the late Queen Elizabeth very much. For her to finally speak up, it meant she felt that staying quiet was now more dangerous than having a big argument. Edward and Sophie had tried very hard to give Louise a normal life. They wanted her to understand what it means to serve her country without feeling like she had to compete with other people for fame. They taught their children that being a royal is about doing your duty, not about being the most famous person in the room. They protected their kids from the mean fights about who is more important in the palace. Louise knew that you don't have to be the most important person to be a good member of the family. This was why her words at Bagshot Park were so powerful. Everyone knew she wasn't saying it because she wanted more power or more attention. She had never been a person who chased after those things. Louise had a very special way of thinking about what it means to be a royal. She learned a lot from her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth. They spent many quiet afternoons together at Windsor Castle. They loved carriage driving together. Carriage driving is a traditional sport where you sit in a wooden carriage and guide horses along a path. It takes a lot of patience and focus. For Louise, those times with her grandmother were about being humble and showing respect to others. She felt that if anyone tried to turn her royal duties into a way to control her, it was like they were breaking a promise to her grandmother. She wanted to do things the way the late queen had taught her. Now, Sophie was in a very difficult spot. She had worked very hard to be helpful to King Charles and Queen Camilla. She always tried to keep the peace while also trying to keep Louise away from the mean games people play in the palace. Sophie was worried that what Louise said might make King Charles angry with Edward. But she also knew that if she told Louise to apologize, it would be like telling her that being fake is better than telling the truth. Edward waited until Camilla was gone and the car had driven away. Then he went over and closed the big doors to the drawing room himself so they could have some privacy. Edward looked at his daughter and asked her if she understood what would happen now. He asked if she knew that banning the queen from their home was a very big deal that would have consequences. Louise looked at her father and said, "I understand what staying silent would cost us." Edward could hear that she was still a little bit scared, but he could also see that she was very sure of herself. He knew then that the decision was made and there was no going back. He could see that his daughter had grown up and was ready to stand up for her family's dignity. Camilla had been paying a lot of attention to Louise lately. She wanted to take some of the jobs that Edward and Sophie usually did and give them to her own office instead. She said she was trying to be helpful and supportive, but really, it would have given Camilla the power to decide everything Louise did. She would control who Louise talked to and what her public life looked like. Prince William had even warned Edward that this wasn't just about paperwork. William thought Camilla wanted to show everyone that she was the boss of the younger royal women. He thought she wanted to make her own position stronger before the next king takes over. Later on, Princess Catherine asked Louise what had really made her so upset. Louise didn't just tell her with words. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper. It was an invitation to a special memorial service. It looked like a normal piece of paper at first, but when you looked closer, you could see that someone had crossed things out by hand. That paper was the proof of the exact moment Louise stopped thinking of Camilla as just a difficult relative. She started seeing her as someone who was trying to take away her family's honor and pride. The big problem didn't actually start at Bagshot Park that day. It really started 3 weeks before that. There was a private service at a place called St. George's Chapel. It was a special time to remember Queen Elizabeth and how much she loved helping young people and horses. Louise went there thinking she was going to stand up and read a short speech to honor her grandmother. She had practiced it and was very excited to do something so special. But just a few minutes before the service was supposed to start, a worker came up to her. He gave her a new plan for the day. Her name was gone from the list of speakers. Someone else was doing her part instead. The order to change it had come straight from Camilla's office. Louise had spent a long time getting ready for that reading. She had chosen words from one of Queen Elizabeth's famous speeches to the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is a big group of countries that work together because they have a shared history. The late Queen loved the Commonwealth and often talked about how young and old people should help each other. For Louise, reading those words wasn't just for show. It was a promise to keep doing the work her grandmother loved. When she lost her chance to speak, it felt like she was losing one of her last ways to feel close to the grandmother she missed so much. The change happened in a small, private room called a vestry, where people get ready before a church service. A worker handed Louise a program that had lines drawn through it in blue ink. Her job had been given to someone else that Camilla liked better. Louise was told she had to sit in the back with the rest of the family instead of being at the front. When Louise asked if there was a mistake, the worker wouldn't even look at her. He just said the Queen's office wanted a more senior voice, which meant someone more important or older. Louise didn't argue. She just folded the paper and said, "Thank you." She walked into the chapel and didn't say anything, even though she felt like she was going to cry. She stayed quiet to be respectful, but it was a very mean thing to do to her. After the church service was over, Sophie found Louise sitting all by herself. She was still holding the speech she never got to read. Louise whispered to her mother, "Grandmama asked me to keep doing this. Why was I treated like I didn't belong?" Sophie realized then that this wasn't just a small mistake. It was a very deep hurt. Camilla's choice had hurt Louise's feelings about her grandmother, her job, and who she was as a person. Sophie was very upset. She went to talk to Camilla at a party later that day. Camilla just said that the service needed to follow a strict order of who is most important. She told Sophie that Louise needs to learn that being a royal is a privilege given by the leaders, not something you just get because of your feelings. This answer only made Sophie more angry and sad. Later, Edward found out about another mean thing that happened. Camilla's office had sent a letter saying they wanted to review Louise's role in a horse carriage show. They said they weren't sure if she should do it because she was only doing it because of her connection to the late Queen. That night, Louise put her unread speech next to some old letters from Queen Elizabeth. She made a quiet promise to her mom. She said that the next time Camilla came to their house and tried to act like she was in charge of their memories, she would not stay silent. She was going to stand up for herself. So, when Camilla walked into Bagshot Park a few weeks later, she didn't know she was walking right into a trap that Louise had already set. Camilla could have just let the whole thing go after Louise said she wasn't welcome, but she didn't. She told her driver to stop the car before they even left the property. She got out of the car, walked back into the house, and didn't even wait for someone to let her in. She went back into the room and demanded that Louise take back what she said. This second fight was even colder and scarier than the first one. This time, it was just Camilla, Louise, Sophie, and Edward. No one else was there to watch. The front door opened and Camilla took off her gloves very slowly. She told Edward that no one is allowed to be mean to the Queen. To her, the title of Queen was very important and everyone had to respect it. She felt Louise was being disrespectful to the crown itself. Camilla said she wanted an apology right then and there. She also wanted them to promise in writing that she and the king would always be allowed to come to Bagshot Park whenever they wanted. She wanted the family to prove that Louise's words didn't have any real power. Louise was standing by the fireplace. Camilla walked right up to her until they were only a few feet apart. Camilla asked her, "Do you understand who you are speaking to?" Louise didn't move away. She stood her ground and answered, "Yes, that is why I chose every word." You could see her hands shaking, but her voice was very strong. She was definitely scared, but she was not going to give up. Sophie stepped in when Camilla called Louise immature, which is another way of saying she was acting like a child. Sophie moved to stand between Camilla and her daughter. She told Camilla that Louise had been very hurt at the memorial service for the woman who helped raise her. Sophie didn't yell. She kept her voice low, but her words were very sharp. She wasn't trying to make everyone at the palace happy anymore. She was just being a mom who was protecting her child from someone being mean. It was a very powerful moment of a mother standing up for her daughter. Finally, Camilla admitted that she was the one who decided to take Louise's reading away at the chapel. She said that just because Louise loved Queen Elizabeth, it didn't mean she got to do whatever she wanted at official events. But by saying this, she showed everyone the real reason she did it. She didn't do it because of the rules. She did it because she knew Louise had a special bond with the late Queen that Camilla didn't have. She was jealous of that connection and the power it gave Louise. Camilla then told Edward to make his daughter behave. But Edward didn't do what he was told. Instead, he moved a chair and said the talk was over. He told Camilla he had already asked her to leave once, and now he was asking her again. Camilla left the house for the second time and called King Charles right away. She told him that Edward and his family were being very rude and were not listening to her. She wanted him to fix it before other people started acting the same way. But when Charles heard what happened, he realized this was about more than just one mean sentence. It was about whether the king and queen could tell people what to do inside their own private homes. A royal title might mean you are important at a palace or a parade, but Bagshot Park was a family home. It was a place where Edward and Sophie had lived for a long time. It was their private space. King Charles was in a very tough spot. If he took Camilla's side too much, he would lose his relationship with his brother and make Louise feel even worse. But if he didn't help his wife, she would look like she had no power in the family. He was stuck between being a good husband and being a fair leader. Charles sat alone in his office and read the reports of what happened. When he got to the part where Edward asked Camilla to leave the house, he put the papers down and just sat there in silence for a whole minute. He knew he could order people to show up at a parade, but he couldn't order them to trust or love someone who had been mean to them. Princess Anne came into the room and she did not want to play games. She told Charles that if he forced Louise to say sorry, it would turn a family fight into a big mess that everyone in the country would talk about. She warned him that having power doesn't mean people will respect you. If the king used his power to bully a young woman in her own house, the family would never forget it. Sophie was also ready to fight. She had kept all the proof. She had the changed program from the chapel and the mean letters from Camilla's office. These papers showed that Camilla was trying to be mean on purpose, not just making a mistake. Charles asked Prince William to help fix things. William read all the letters and agreed to talk to Louise, but he told his father that he would not force her to lie about what happened. He also said he wouldn't try to make her give up control of her own home. Charles finally sent a message to Camilla. He told her they needed to talk about how much power she really has over other people's families. For the first time, Camilla realized that Charles wasn't going to punish Louise. He was going to tell his wife that she had gone too far and needed to stop. By the next morning, people outside the family were starting to hear about the fight. A lunch that was supposed to happen at Bagshot Park was canceled. People noticed it was gone from the official schedule. Camilla's office was told that if they wanted to talk to Louise, they had to go through Edward's assistant first. Even the people who worked at the houses were told they couldn't just walk in anymore. They needed permission in writing. No one made a big announcement, but everyone could see that the rules had changed. Edward was the one who canceled the lunch. He told his staff that Camilla was not allowed in the house unless he or Sophie said it was okay. This made Louise's words a real rule that everyone had to follow. The schedules for the royal family changed even more. Sophie and the Queen were supposed to do jobs together, but those were split up so they wouldn't have to see each other. This was a big deal because usually when the royals do things together, it shows the world they are a happy team. Now the world could see they were not happy at all. Camilla saw the empty spot in her calendar where the lunch used to be. She was very upset. She had expected Charles to back her up. Instead, it looked like he was letting Edward and Louise win. Louise felt a little bit bad about all the trouble. She told her mom she didn't want to make things hard for her dad's work. Sophie hugged her and explained that sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, even if it's hard. She said that protecting your dignity is more important than having an easy life. Other people at the palace started to support Louise, too. They found out how she had been treated at the chapel and they thought it was wrong. Someone who used to work for Queen Elizabeth even sent Louise a note saying she did the right thing by not letting herself be erased. Camilla tried to suggest that Edward and Sophie should do fewer important jobs in the future. She wanted to punish them, but King Charles said no. He told her that royal work is for the country and it shouldn't be used as a weapon in a family fight. This made Camilla feel very alone. Louise decided to go back to school early to get away from the drama, but before she left, William asked to talk to her in the garden at Bagshot Park. They went outside so no one else could hear them. They weren't acting like a prince and a lady. They were just two cousins talking. They walked under the trees for a while without saying anything. Then William asked her if she really wanted to keep Camilla away forever. Louise stopped by a bench and looked very sad. She said she just wanted Camilla to understand that she can't come into their home and be mean to her mother or her grandmother's memory. William told her he had seen the proof from the chapel. He told her that what happened to her was wrong and mean. He said it was not protocol or a rule. It was just a person being unkind. Louise told him how much it hurt to think she had let her grandmother down by not speaking that day. William understood her pain. He told her that sometimes people at the palace use big words like protocol to hide the fact that they are being mean. He told Louise that she was right to set a boundary, but he also said that being angry forever would only hurt her in the end. Louise said she would only forgive Camilla if she did three things. First, she had to say sorry to Sophie in person. Second, she had to admit she was wrong about the memorial service. And third, she had to promise never to use her power to boss their family around again. She wanted the truth, not just a fake sorry. William promised to tell Camilla exactly what Louise said. He told Charles that the door to the house wasn't locked forever, but Camilla would have to be humble if she wanted to walk through it again. She couldn't act like she was the boss anymore. Charles knew he couldn't make Louise change her mind. Camilla spent the whole night thinking about it. In the morning, she decided what to do. She got in her car and went to Bagshot Park all by herself. She didn't bring any helpers or guards. She just wanted to talk. By the time the sun came up, the whole country was talking about the story. It was on the news and in all the newspapers. People were arguing about whether Louise was right or if Camilla should be more respected. But the thing people talked about most was the closed front door of Bagshot Park. Everyone wondered if it would open for the Queen. The palace tried to say it was just a private family matter, but Edward's office didn't deny any of the stories. One newspaper even had a big picture of the door, with a headline saying the Queen couldn't order it to open. People started to gather near Windsor Castle with flowers for Louise. They liked that a quiet girl had found her voice to defend her family. One person wrote a card saying that a quiet voice can be very strong. This is why the story was so popular. Louise hadn't been mean or loud, she had just been firm. When Camilla arrived at the house, people saw her through the gates. She looked very different because she was all alone. She was holding a small envelope in her hands. She didn't have her usual royal look. She looked like someone who knew they had made a big mistake. Sophie met her at the door. Camilla gave her a letter she had written by hand. In the letter, she said she was sorry for what she did at the memorial service. She admitted that she was mean because she was worried about her own place in the family. She said she used her power to hurt Louise and Sophie, and that was wrong. Sophie read the letter, but she didn't say everything was okay yet. She took the letter upstairs to Louise and told her it was her choice what to do next. The king and the whole country were waiting, but only Louise could decide. Louise read the letter very carefully. She wanted to see if Camilla was really sorry or if she was just trying to fix her reputation. Then she went downstairs to the drawing room where everyone was waiting. Camilla was standing up. She didn't sit in the best chair like she usually did. This was a big sign of respect. She was acting like a guest, not a queen. Sophie and Edward were there to support Louise, but they let her do the talking. Camilla told Louise again that she was sorry, and that she was wrong to be jealous of Louise's bond with the late queen. Louise told her that a letter couldn't fix the fact that she missed her chance to honor her grandmother in the chapel. She said it would take a long time to trust her again. She told Camilla that from now on, she could only come to the house if she was invited. And she said that any plans for Louise's life had to be approved by her parents, not by Camilla's office. Camilla said yes, right away. She even took a plan for a new job she wanted Louise to do and tore it in half. That showed she was serious about giving up control. Louise didn't give her a hug, but she did ask her to stay for some tea. Sophie poured the tea for everyone. Edward moved the chair back to where it belonged. It was a small thing, but it meant they were trying to be a family again. They weren't all best friends yet, but they were talking instead of fighting. Louise's big moment didn't destroy the royal family. It just reminded everyone that even a queen has to follow the rules of being kind and respectful. Camilla learned that she had to earn her place in the family home. Louise showed the world that you don't have to be loud to be brave. The door at Bagshot Park opened again, but it only opened because everyone agreed to be honest and fair to each other.